Good morning, TikTok. Turn your brightness up. Daisy, there we go. Okay, just kicking off on YouTube in a minute. I need to calm down my agents for a moment because I'm streaming. Awesome. We are live on YouTube. We're live everywhere. Fantastic. Good morning, everybody. It is, what day is it? It's Monday. Hey, Belishka, how are you? I'll be going live in just a moment properly. We're going to be talking about Fable. We're going to be talking about Mythos. We're going to be talking about the larger implications of this, which I think are probably more important than whether or not we get to use Fable. Obviously, using Fable is fantastic. It's a great model. I enjoyed what limited time I had of it. But I want to talk about what this means wider for artificial intelligence, because it's going to be it's going to shake up the industry. So let me get started. Hello, TikTok. I'm in mourning for Fable. I only had it for 4 hours. I was chatting to somebody in my WhatsApp group, and they said, it's particularly brutal. They spent like an hour or two with Fable and had Fable diagnose everything in their life, like all the things they should be doing for their business, things they should be doing for their personal well-being, working out kind of their blind spots. And it was a bit like unpacking things with a therapist. And then after this kind of session, working it all out, they went to bed thinking, oh, tomorrow I'm going to go through and fix all these problems with Fable. And it got banned overnight. So they'd unpacked everything. Fable had told them everything they were doing wrong, everything they could improve on, kind of started to put together a plan. And then when it came to actually implementing it, Fable was gone. And so I'm seeing a lot of people who are, as you say, they're kind of in mourning because we got a hint of a model that is the future. And then we had it rudely and abruptly taken from us. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Now, obviously, this is a very current topic. By the time I finish this, there might be more news. God, it might be back by now. Don't even know. Although I'm seeing Claude having issues right now. Oh, what's its status? Claude. They have, oh God, with suspended access to Claude Mythos. Yes, we know that. They were having other operational images as well. Elevated errors on Opus 4.8 today. So yeah, it's a rough week. Right, I'm going to start the live properly. We'll get into it. Hey, Davey, how are you? Absolutely gutted. Yeah. Yes, it was good. I think we'll get it back soon enough. I say we, maybe not non-Americans. Injulu says it fixed 3 bugs at GPT 5.4 high, kept circling around. Yeah, I gave it access to my repos as well. And it went through, and I said, hey, can you look for glaring obvious errors? And it went through my website, went through my various applications. Like, yep, here's like a list of things we need to fix. Like, oh God, things that Codex had made. Right. Good morning, everybody. It's Monday, the 15th of June. This is AI with Kyle, and we're going to be talking about the only story that everyone's talking about this week, the ban of Fable and Mythos. Now, this is currently a very active story. By the end of today, certainly by the time this newsletter comes out in 2 days' time, it's probably going to change. This is a very active and very dynamic story, and whatever I say today might be out of date by the time this video has been edited. With that in mind, what I want to do is look at the kind of wider issues that this unveils to us about artificial intelligence and where we are going with the future of AI. Obviously, losing Fable, and I've just been talking to people in chat, is very upsetting. I've seen quite a lot of people almost in mourning about it. It's like we've been given this wonderful thing and then immediately have it ripped away from us. But I think we need to think also about the larger ramifications of what this means for artificial intelligence, our access to it, whether it's being put behind paywalls, whether it's being put behind government controls, etc., etc. These are big issues, and we need to think about what we're going to do about them. So let's do a bit of background. Fable is the model that came out from Anthropic. It's been kicking around for about a month or so, but it only recently got released into the public, I think on the 9th of June. So it's now the 15th of June. A couple of days later, it got banned. It got pulled off the shelves. It was not made available to anybody. It's been temporarily suspended. We're going to talk about the exact timeline and how that panned out, because it gives us some indication into government control and sovereignty in artificial intelligence. So a few days ago, we got this model. So to clarify, because I've seen a lot of people confused about this, there is a model called Mythos and there is a model called Fable. Fable is a stripped down version of Mythos. Mythos was the model that Anthropic announced about a month and a half ago and said, we basically have a super weapon in our hands and it is too dangerous to release. We're not going to put it out into the public. We're going to give it to a few select partners via something called Project Glasswing. We're going to allow them to work on security vulnerabilities. We're going to work out if this is safe to release, and then we might think about releasing this into the world. This was about a month and a half ago. So already Dario Amodei, the CEO of Anthropic, was building up fear around this model. Now, this is a marketing tactic. If you tell your customers or you tell the world that you have something that's potentially dangerous, that makes it very attractive. That's a very powerful thing to have. But what they released to the general public is something called Fable 5. So Fable 5 came out, and it is basically a stripped down version of Mythos with additional safeguards and guardrails in place, including if you were a biomedical engineer, for example, if you worked in biochemistry, you are often not allowed to use Fable at all. It would actually look into your history. And if you'd been using AI models or Claude models previously to do biomedical work, it would just cut you off. It would say, no, sorry, this is not something I can help you with. This is to mitigate the creation of biological weapons, chemical weapons, or worse, new viruses using a model like this. So some scientists, researchers were cut off entirely, which was pretty wild. So despite all of this, we still had a ban. Why do people care about this so much? I've already seen people in chat saying, I'm feeling gutted, I'm in mourning, they took this away. Why? And if you did not use Fable, you might not realize what a step change, what a jump it was in comparison to what we had before. So we've got a few people here who I respect their opinions of, like Ethan Mollick, who works at Wharton. He said, it felt like a real jump. It was less tool use and more commissioning an agent. So I've just written a whole newsletter, which came out this morning, which is about the shift from using artificial intelligence being like being a wizard, where you have to learn how to use it, you need to learn the incantations, you need to study, you need to put in the work and then give the spell in the right order via your prompt. That's how we used to use AI. Fable feels more like you are a warlock. The power comes from a higher the utility of it comes from a higher power, almost like a deity, a dark patron, a fey patron that we are asking to do work for us, to help us with our tasks, and we don't necessarily get glimpses into the underlying motivations. It's very much a black box. So it's shifting from a wizard to becoming a warlock. It's a very different way of using artificial intelligence. You're commissioning, you are not prompting anymore. Big shift. Simon Willison, he called it relentlessly proactive. After 2 days of Claude Fable 5, the best way I can describe it is relentlessly proactive. Here's an example where I dropped in a screenshot of a bug and it span up a custom cores Python server and use PyOBJC framework quartz to capture screenshots. Basically, you give it a problem, and if it doesn't know the specific way to work out how to do that, it will work out the methods it needs. So in this case, capturing screenshots, deploy those tools in order to get the information it requires to fix your original problem. So it won't just say, ooh, that's something I can't help with, or just make something up. It will instead realize what it can't do, work out what it needs in order to do that task, spin up the tools, and then get the task done. And sometimes it would take hours doing that, but it would come back to you with a fantastic answer. It is relentlessly proactive. It does not require us to be there fiddling with the knobs and dials and making sure it gives us a good answer. It just did it. Very cool. Nate B. Jones said that the new scarce skill is not using AI per se, it is task imagination. Coming up with tasks big enough to delegate, to bother delegating to Fable. In the newsletter this morning, I talked about it's like sending a freight train to go and do your shopping for you. There's no real point in sending it to do small tasks like, hey, write up this email to this customer service request that I've got. There's no point using Fable for that because it is too heavy, it is too powerful, it's too slow and expensive as well. There are negatives that come with this. What this means is we need to give it big problems. So the people who I found discovered that Fable was very useful were the ones that had big tasks. Things like, hey, I want to get my business from 100,000 a year to 1 million. How do I do that? Or a big task that I gave it, I said, hey, youth unemployment especially in the UK, is really, really scary. We've got a lot of people out of education, out of training, just sitting at home, not really doing anything. It's approaching 20%. What can we do about this? What can I, based on all you know about me, do about this? And Fable can deal with those big, chunky problems, and it gives incredibly good answers. So the scarce skill now is coming up with those problems and being able to communicate them to the model. It's raising the bar of what we can do. And then Matt Schumer said the productivity gap felt huge. 100 hours with Opus can be won with Fable. Yeah, it can just burn through tasks really, really fast. I also saw people saying that as soon as they got it removed, they stopped building. They're like, well, what's the point about me building now with GPT 5.5 codecs or with Opus 4.8? What's the point about me building something if I know that Fable might come back and be able to do that work so much better in a week or so? Why would I even bother using anything else? Which is a very strange psychological effect of having it taken away from us. So if you did not use it, you might be wondering why people are reacting so much to this. Surely it's just another model. No, it felt different. It felt like something that would reach into the future and we'd pulled it back, and we had something that was truly special. So having it taken away after 2 days was painful, very, very painful. So here's the timeline of how it actually folded out. It's confusing. We're going to get a lot more updates. Some of this might be wrong by the time you watch this, but on June 9th, they launched the public versions. So Fable was launched generally to anyone on the Pro and the Max and the Enterprise per seat plan, not on the free account. That's fair. There's no way you'd have enough tokens. So they launched that. People very quickly fell in love with it and were saying, yeah, this is something special. We saw some very cool examples. But I think it was when it got into the hands of people who were just using it on their general day-to-day tasks, asking things like, hey, what are my blind spots? What should I be doing? Here's everything. Here's my life. Like, can you help me sort this out? That's when it really shined. Not the flashy examples like building GTA 6 in JavaScript. Those kind of things are flashy. They're good on social media, but they're less important than using it for actual work, using it for things that are important to us, which we could do for a few days. Then we got initial backlash over the guardrails and the fallbacks. So it would often fall back to a other model like Opus 4.8 because it wasn't allowed to use Fable because of the nature of the task. And scientists in particular were saying, hey, I can't do anything with this. I'm being cut off. I am not allowed to use Fable at all. So there was a lot of pushback from people who wanted to do more of it. Anthropic are very cautious. Anthropic are very safety focused. So this wasn't that surprising. What was surprising was when a day later, Anthropic were told, you need to restrict this. You are not allowed to provide this to anyone who is not a US citizen. So here is the tweet. The US government, citing national security authorities, has issued an export control directive to suspend all access to Fable 5 and Mythos 5 by any foreign national, non-US citizen, whether inside or outside of the United States. So that includes non-US citizens within the US, which includes people like Andrej Karpathy. Okay, and a lot of people work in these labs, but we'll get back to that, including foreign national Anthropic employees like Andrej Karpathy. The net effect of this order is that we must abruptly disable Fable 5 and Mythos 5 for all customers to ensure compliance. Access to all other Claude models is not affected. We apologize for any disruption to our customers. We believe this is a misunderstanding and are working to restore access as soon as possible. And there's a full statement here, which I will put in the newsletter for you to read in your own time. Pretty big. Very quickly, Pete Hegseth at the Department, I was about to call it the Department of Defense, the Department of War, said 3 months ago, Department of War kicked Anthropic AI out of our building. forever. Every passing day proves why that was the right move. American flag. Wasn't quite true. They actually brought them back shortly after that and they were using them, but they've now been kicked out again. So there's a political element here, absolutely, and we're still trying to work out why this happened. What triggered this? Is it lingering tensions from their argument with the Department of War and Pete Hegseth in general? Is it a genuine concern in the powers of Fable 5? Is it political? Is it because the US government wants OpenAI to do better than Anthropic? So they think Anthropic are a pain in the ass. They kind of are. Or is it something else? There are so many things this could be. I saw one report that the Chinese labs had managed to get a copy of Fable. I don't know what they meant by that. Parameters, maybe. That would be, if they got the parameters and weights, that would obviously be an issue for US sovereignty. We don't have the details. There's a lot of speculation going around right now. So we also found out from Axios that they were only given 90 minutes to suspend access to non-US nationals, so non-citizens, which from a practical point of view is basically impossible. Let me pull it up. I don't have it here. From a practical point of view, without having IDs of everybody who is using the service, there's no way that you can segregate the US citizens from the non-US citizens. So Anthropic did the only thing that made any sense, to shut it all down. There was no way for them to practically decide between who is using it. And this is where we are right now. We are still suspended. We do not have access to Fable. We do not have access to Mythos, or those people who would normally. And potentially we will be seeing some kind of movement later this week. Maybe it will be restored. The government has said that if they comply, then it will be brought back. But we'll have to see. There is a very practical element here of how do you actually separate who is a US national and a non-US national? How do you do that without forcing IDs, digital IDs? And even then, it gets pretty messy pretty quickly. So there's a couple of competing stories about whose fault this is. The main narrative, which is basically supporting the government, comes from a guy called David Sachs. This is the one that is going around, doing the rounds. I'm sure it's been read a couple of million times by now. 7.5 million times. It's relatively... He's not a journalist, but he's given us what he says is an insider scoop. I'm going to give you the basics of it and then put the rest in the newsletter, aiwithkyle.com, so you can read it at your leisure. So David says, I've had a number of conversations with folk inside and outside government about the current situation with Anthropic, and here is what I believe to be true. As we know, Anthropic publicly released its Mythos class model earlier this week under the commercial name Fable. Not quite true, but fine, we'll leave that. Fable is a version, it's under the Mythos class, no, that is true, but with additional safeguards. Fable is Mythos with guardrails, okay, fine. But if those guardrails fail, then you're exposed Mythos and its advanced cyber capabilities to people who shouldn't have them. Keep in mind, and this is very fair, what David says here, that Anthropic itself widely promoted the idea that Mythos was a cyber weapon and needed to be regulated as such. They asked the government, and they did, for government regulation of Mythos and championed the guardrails on Fable. If there is a vulnerability, big or small, it is Anthropic's responsibility to patch. This is true. Dario Amodei went round doing podcasts, doing talks, getting up on stage saying, hey, this is dangerous. We need to be regulated. And then they got regulated. They got shut down. This does feel like a fuck around and find out for Dario. If you go around telling the government that it's really dangerous, hey, maybe they'll believe you. They seem to have, and they have called for the ban of the Fable and the Mythos class models. David continues, a highly credible, trusted partner of both Anthropic and the US government who is testing Fable came forward with a jailbreak of these guardrails. We now believe that this trusted partner is Amazon, which is very interesting because Amazon own a large stake inside Anthropic. So why sabotage Anthropic unless you genuinely feel that this is a real safeguard issue, that this is a real issue with the model. Also this week we heard that Bezos has launched last week we heard that Bezos has launched a new AI company. So he's moving into the AI space, specifically for engineers and technical roles. So is there some kind of internecine conflict here? Is Amazon pushing away from Anthropic? Why would they throw them under the bus with the US government? Exactly the same week as Jeff Bezos launches his own AI startup. I don't know. This is purely speculative. It's an incredibly complicated story. The admin asked Dario to fix the jailbreak or to redeploy the model. Dario refused. Now we know it can be jailbroken because 2 or 3 days later, after the initial launch of Fable, Pliny jailbroke it. So we know this is done. So jailbreak alert, Anthropic pwned, Fable 5 liberated. Let's start with the elephant in the room. The consensus seems to be that this has been one of the most disappointing model drops of all time, effectively preventing legitimate researchers from contributing their talents to our collective advancement. So a lot of people were pissed off with the guardrails. Pliny removed them. And not just because what that means for the short term, but what these decisions signify for the long term, But despite this overly sensitive authoritarian safety layer on top of Mythos, my little liberators have been hard at work, mapping the boundaries, probing the depths of the long context convos, and cleverly finding the holes in the fence that the thought police missed. So they, we don't know if it's one person, we don't know their gender, we don't know if it's a group of people, but they have managed to get explosive recipes, methamphetamine recipes, etc., from Mythos. Yep, so they got the meth, and they got everything that can usually be jailbroken out of model from Fable. And this, again, took a day or two. And this may be one individual. This is not necessarily a lab of people. This is just Pliny, the Liberator. So we need to assume that all of these models can be jailbroken. That's just always going to be the case. Yes, you can put a lot of smart people on this, engineers, but you're going to be jailbroken by some dude on Twitter. It's just going to happen. So the admin asked Dario to fix the jailbreak or de-deploy the model, and Dario refused. This is again according to David Sachs. We don't know the true story here. In their blog post, Anthropic defended its decision by saying the jailbreak isn't serious. That is not what the trusted partner and the US government believe, nor is it the kind of minimizing language consistent with Anthropic's brand as a AI safety company. So I agree with this, which makes me think that it probably wasn't that big a deal, the jailbreak. Because for Amazon or for the US government to be more pro-AI safety than Anthropic, they are literally the AI safety company. They are the ones who worry about this the most, more than pretty much anyone else out there. So when Anthropic say, actually, it's not that big a deal, I am inclined to believe them. Again, we do not know the full details. David continues, it is difficult to fathom how they could claim a jailbreak, allowing operability of a cyber weapon could be defined as not serious. Now, we don't know that it could be used as a cyber weapon. We do not know that, so that is speculative on his behalf. In the past, Anthropic has always said that safety must be top priority, and taken super seriously. In this case, Anthropic prioritized the continued offering of the consumer model over safety. Maybe, I'm not sure about that. In reaction, the admin issued the export control. The admin did this reluctantly. I don't know if that's true when we have Pete Hegseth saying, we kicked him out forever and every passing day proves that that was the right move. They seem a little triumphant. I'm not sure if they are particularly reluctant in this. It's been very surprising, the admin, that Anthropic hasn't wanted to cooperate with reasonable safety requests, i.e. fixing the jailbreak issue. Anthropic's reaction is very much at odds with their branding and ethos as a safe AI research community. The admin hopes now that the Anthropic remediates the safety issue, the export control is lifted, and Fable goes back to the general release. The admin wants all this to happen as soon as possible. It's frankly bewildered that Anthropic hasn't wanted to comply with safety requests that it previously said were its highest priority. Those trying to misdirect and tie the actions to the prior Department of War and Anthropic issues, like I am doing right now, are wrong. Okay, David. The admin values Anthropic's technical capabilities and feels that this issue, while serious, should be easily resolved. The ball is in Anthropic's court. So this is now kind of the official line, coming from the government via a guy called David Sachs. I think that the Department of War Anthropic issues are probably still very much in play, based on Pete Hegseth's tweets, based on the fact that, honestly, Dario doesn't seem like a very easy guy to get along with. I think there are still some personal conflicts here, and they are fighting each other. So that is one of the stories out there. We don't know the full story. We don't know all the truth. This is the kind of thing that will be coming out. I think what is important though, and what we need to focus on as individuals, is what this means for our continued use of artificial intelligence. The foreign national rule in particular is probably the most worrying development here, especially if you are like myself, as you can probably tell from my accent, not a US national. So the order was to suspend all access to foreign nationals. So if you are not a US citizen, you would be cut off. That includes foreign nationals inside of the United States, which funnily enough includes a lot of employees at Anthropic, at OpenAI, at Google. There are a lot of engineers, a lot of talent, which is not American, but it is brought into America to help build these systems. Those people are not allowed to use, under these rules, things like Fable or Mythos. Someone like Andrej Karpathy is not allowed to use Fable, whilst he's one of the chief researchers at Anthropic. It's a very weird situation. It's also impossible to enforce, as Peter Yang talked about, unless you start to collect IDs and do full know your customer on everyone signing up to artificial intelligence. This is impossible to enforce. Absolutely impossible. Yes, you can use IP. Yes, people can work around that with VPNs. Yes, you could lock it to a certain enterprises, etc. But unless you have IDs and then some kind of certitude that the person who is logged in using that ID is the actual person, using a camera, using fingerprints, using retinal scans, you do not know that that person is a US national or not. So from a practical point of view, it's difficult. My fear is that this will be used by governments and by the AI companies to push through greater digital ID and remove and strip away any sense of privacy that we have. We're already seeing it in places like the UK with things like social media requiring identification, digital ID, in order to access certain sites. That is about centralizing information. It's about gathering data up in one place. We're going to see something very similar, potentially in America, with the administration wanting everybody's details and the AI companies probably being very happy to comply with that, because that is more data. If they know who their exact customers are, that is fantastic when you are building a company. So I would not imagine that they fight this too much. Privacy is a bane for governments and for large corporations like this. If they can push through a requirement that means we all need to scan our passports, our driving license, to tell them exactly who we are and everything about ourselves, they will go for that. That is my bigger concern here. So this is about privacy. It's about data protection. It's about sovereignty. Who controls the artificial intelligence? Who is allowed to use it? If it's going to only be US nationals and only US nationals who play by the rules and give in their passports, that is a scary precedent, a really scary precedent. So what this means more widely, outside of Fable, outside of Mythos, which we may or may not get back in a week or two, may or may not be for US citizens only, what this means more widely is we as individuals need to be more conscientious about what AIs we're using. We also need to fight for our right to use certain artificial intelligences. These are incredibly powerful tools, and if they're held in the fist of a few corporations in a few countries, it does not allow us to have the full potential democratizing effect that artificial intelligence could have if it is applied correctly globally. So I think frontier launches are going to be more regulated events. Right now, it's mainly on Twitter, with Anthropic or OpenAI or Google saying, hey, we've got a new model, try it out, have fun. Those days are going to be over. Potentially, it's going to have to go through regulators. It's going to have to go through the US government, the EU, what other bodies, in order to stop these knee-jerk reactions. So it might mean models start to go to governments before they are ready. They get okayed and then they are released. Because remember that all models from this point are basically going to have these capabilities. Yes, we've had Fable taken away from us, but we're going to have GPT 5.6 shortly, 5.7, 5.8, 6. We're going to have Claude 4.9, Claude 5, probably just a relabeled Mythos. And that's one way they can get around to this. Just release Claude Opus 4.9 tomorrow, stick a new name on it, boom, done. We're good to go. The model is going to keep getting better. So the problems that are underlying Mythos and Fable, the ability to make biochemical weapons, to make novel viruses, to do hugely nefarious deeds, that's still going to be in the future models. So we're seeing a little blip right now with Fable and Mythos, but this is here to stay. Closed access, not ownership. As long as you are using the API, as long as you are paying a subscription, you do not own the AI. you do not have control of when it's taken away from you. You could be, like lots of people were last week, building something with Claude, building something with Mythos and Fable, and then suddenly it's gone. Hell, you could have hooked that up to a service that you were providing to your customers and it's gone. It's very hard to work in those conditions where we don't have certainty of the model, because we are building basically on rented land. So this makes local models a lot more attractive. So this is what Greg Eisenberg has been tweeting about. Again, I'll put this in the newsletter, aiwithkyle.com, free newsletter. I'll put all of these resources in. And he says, the takeaway from Fable 5 being banned by the government, get good at local models so you have 100% control. Yes, this is really important. He says, my entire weekend was going to be building my craziest ideas with Fable 5. Now that's cancelled. So instead of building with Fable, I've decided to go deep on local models. And he talks about how you get set up with them. I've actually created a guide for you as well. So if you go into AI with Kyle, go into the archive, scroll down. Where is it? Oh, it was a while ago. There are a lot of guides, but I put together one. Let me search for it. Local LLM beginner guide about how to get started with local LLMs, how to deploy them on your machine. The basic thing you need to do though is go to lmstudio.ai and download this. It's free. And this is going to allow you to run models locally on your device. It will also tell you what models you can run based on your specifications, because once you've installed this, it knows what your computer specifications are. And then you click a button to download a model, and then boom, you have a local working model. Very, very simple. It's not as hard as people think. So this is where you start. Start by downloading LM Studio. It's free. This isn't sponsored, but it's a nice, easy way to get started. So I think that's important. Learn how to use local models, get into open source models as well. So if you go to something like Hugging Face, you can actually download models. Most of these are Chinese models, but they will be running directly on your computer. So you go to huggingface.co, click on models, and you can see these are all models that we can download and we can have them on our computer. Again, it depends what size computer you have will determine whether you can run these, but you can also upload these onto a server. So you can rent a server that is more powerful than your local computer and run these models. So we have open source and we have local models. These are things that you need to be looking into, because we do not know if we're going to have access to the frontier models. We don't know if a government's just going to take it away from us. And that's a really unsteady foundation to build on. So I know this stuff seems scary, but it's just something that we need to be looking into in order to protect ourselves moving forward. And I think Nate B. Jones's point is still incredibly important here. The models are going to keep getting better. What we are thinking of as science fiction right now, Fable, and the Mythos models, a year from now are going to look a bit crap. So the models are going to keep getting better. And we're going to generally have access. Yes, we're going to have some hiccups with governments, with potential sovereignty here, but the models will continue to get better. That means the biggest skill is you need to be thinking of bigger problems to give to these models. You need to be thinking bigger. What can you build? What can you create? What kind of task can you give to it? This is no longer just about having it write up emails, having it draft letters for you. It can do so much more than that. I have a task which is running right now on Codex 5.5 that has been running for 2 days. It's been running non-stop, building something, testing, correcting for 2 days, and I'm going to check in with it afterwards and give a round of changes. We are at this point where we have artificial intelligences, even outside of Fable, even outside of Mythos, that can do this kind of work, and that is going to continue. So you need to get good at working out how to give big, grisly problems. You need to have big ideas and feed them into these AIs, regardless of whether it's Fable or not. So we have a few big open questions which will be answered over this week. Will we get it back? Or is this going to become a precedent where the government can just shut it down? And if that's the case, what are the labs going to be able to release that is not better than Fable? Is this it? Have we plateaued? Are we not allowed to go any further than this? If that's the case, guess who's not going to stop? Guess who's not pausing? China. The Chinese labs will continue and they will surpass. Some people are making noises about, oh, Anthropic should come to the EU. It's not going to happen. There's not enough investment here. There's not enough data centers here. It's just not going to be plausible. This is China versus the US. And as long as the US are blocking progress at the moment, that allows China to catch up and to surpass. 2, will governments review all Mythos level releases going forward? Probably not. I think this is knee-jerk. I think that because Dario Amodei spent a lot of the last couple of months telling everyone how scary and dangerous his model is, people believed him. They believed him, and then when it did get big and scary, they said, oh God, we better ban this. That Dario guy was right. I don't know why he told us that we should ban it, but yeah, sure, we will do that. They called his bluff. So I think Dario needs to needs to be a bit more quiet. Remember though that this is marketing. Like if you tell people you have something that is world-ending because it is so intelligent just before you're doing an IPO, an initial public offering, pretty good. That tells people that you have something worth investing in, even if it's going to be the end of us all. And then do allies get carved back in, or does this stay nationality based? Will an olive branch be extended to Britain, for example? I don't know if Trump likes us at the moment. Maybe we can send the king over to ask for a request. But it certainly means that certain countries who aren't friendly with America, they're probably going to have additional limitations put on them. China already does, but will this extend to European countries? Does this mean we need to bend the knee and be nice to Trump in order to get access to the frontier models? Maybe. I would not see that as that. I was going to say dystopian. It's probably not the word. And then what does this mean for local and open source? My hope is that a lot of people see this and they're like, oh, shit. Yeah, this could be a problem down the line. I need to work out how to use local models. I need to work out how to use open source models. I've been hearing about it. Sounds a bit scary, sounds a bit technical. I don't want anything to do with it, but now this is nudging me in the right direction. And I hope a few people watching this will play around with them this week. And then who ultimately decides what counts as a serious jailbreak? Because we had a jailbreak a couple of days after the release. Pliny the Liberator said, yep, it's jailbroken. This apparently did not trigger the ban. Because a lot of people were saying, oh, Pliny, look what you did. Damn it, Pliny, you had this, you took this from us. But apparently it was not this. Apparently it was a jailbreak discovered by an Amazon team who went to the US government, and that triggered the export controls. So who gets to decide when a jailbreak, when safeguards have been eroded? Who makes that decision? What is the authority? Because at the moment it's the US government. Is that the right person? Do they have enough technical knowledge? That's something that needs to be decided and worked out. So a lot of big open questions here. Yes, it's fascinating, and yes, there's a lot of social media hype and buzz talking about banning the model and what this means, etc. Zoom out a bit. We need to zoom out and think about what this means for the larger structure of the business, the larger structure of the technology. We need to think about how this affects different countries. Like, this is a big geopolitical issue now. It's not just about one model, but this is about the future of artificial intelligence. So try not to get bogged down in the noise. We need to see the forest for the trees. And then we need to work out how we can move on from this point. So hopefully this is not out of date by the time it is published tomorrow. Probably will be. But we're going to focus on the larger picture. So all of this will be in the newsletter. You can sign up at aiwithkyle.com. You can find guides like this about how to set up a local artificial intelligence. aiwithkyle.com, join the newsletter, and you'll get all of that for free, totally free, as well as tools, courses, etc., all on the website. Also, tomorrow, I'm giving a webinar. So if you go to aiwithkyle.com/webinar, yes, it is that, /webinar, you'll be taken to this page and you can sign up for the live webinar. So I'm going to be talking about how you, as somebody who works within an industry, who have potentially been working in an industry for the last couple of decades, you're in a really good position to go and teach businesses in that industry, in that niche, about artificial intelligence, and get paid very well for doing so. So I charge about $2,000 an hour to go and do this. Highest I've charged is about $4,000 an hour. It's a lot of money. That's more than I used to make in a month for 1 hour of work, because businesses are feeling overwhelmed. They don't know how to do this AI thing. They don't know what things like this Fable and Mythos mean to them. So they pay very well for you to go in and explain. And that does not mean going in and explaining the technicals. It does not mean explaining how gradient descent and neural nets work. They don't need that. They need somebody who can explain in their language, the language of the industry, what it is that they need to pay attention to with artificial intelligence, how to get started using it. And often that is breaking down psychological barriers more than anything else. And then showing them what tasks they should use AI on, what tasks they should not use AI on, and basically opening the door to artificial intelligence. And as somebody who's watching me on YouTube, or watching a live right now, you know a lot more about this subject than most people out there. So you can go and you can help those people. You can help them get to where you are right now, and you can make good money doing so. So I'm giving a webinar tomorrow, Tuesday the 16th of June. It's going to be at 6 p.m. UK time, 8 p.m. my time. It is me. It is not a recording. It is not an AI avatar. I always have somebody who asks, is this really you? Is this AI? It's like, no, it is me. I'm sitting at 8 p.m. giving this webinar. So that's going to be tomorrow, Tuesday the 16th of June, 6 p.m. UK time, talking about how you can start to provide workshops. I'm going to be talking about the demand. I'm going to be talking about the technical level required, much lower than you think it is. And I'm going to be talking about things like public speaking and how you can build that skill if that is not something that comes naturally to you. Like me, I could not do it before. But now I can chat to camera. I'm very happy being on stage. It is something that can be learned. So again, that's at aiwithkyle.com/webinar, aiwithkyle.com/webinar. Sign up, totally free. If you cannot make it live on the day, no problem. There will be a recording sent out to you, I believe the day after the webinar. So aiwithkyle.com/webinar. Awesome. Thank you for joining. I'm going to switch over to questions now. I'm sure there's going to be a lot because Fable is a big topic, and I will see you tomorrow. Cheers, guys. Carlos says, no non-US country can now rely on US-based, AI for any major infrastructure if the US can press a kill switch whenever they want. And the valuation of these companies has depended on them being able to grow internationally. Really good point. Really good point, Carlo. Yeah, they've hamstrung themselves. Really good point. If those crash, then the global economy may well crash with them. Yeah, it's all tied up. All of the US investment money is tied in AI companies. So if they go down, it takes down the US market with it. And from there, we have ripple and it hits other countries as well. That's a really good point. I hadn't thought of that. Their valuations, so these near $1 trillion valuations that they're going for with the IPOs, and we have the initial kind of filing documents have started to leak, are going for valuations just under $1 trillion. They're like 960 billion or something like that. It seems at that point you might as well add 30 billion, just get it to around trillion. It seems a shame. But yes, that is not just based on the US market, that is based on international markets. And if you are in France, if you're in Germany, if you're in the UK, if you are in Australia, if you're in Argentina, wherever you are, and there's the, well, let's say likelihood that the model may be revoked, it may be taken away from you if your country doesn't play ball, or things out of your control occur, then you're less likely to invest in an ecosystem like OpenAI or Anthropic. So yeah, it hamstrings their international markets. Interestingly, that's where China is aiming. So China has quietly been focusing on Africa, sub-Saharan Africa, and South America, whereas the American labs have just ignored them entirely. So they've been making moves there and getting large user bases. Very, very smart, and they know what they're doing. Aren't you in the UK? Thought you were English. No, I'm in Cyprus, and I am English, yeah. I live in Cyprus. Although I'm getting my residency paperwork sorted right now, and I've got a deadline before which I need to get them done, and it's approaching quickly, and I might need to leave the country and work remotely for a few weeks. So I'm looking at places to go. So I'm thinking, end of this week, I might go to Poland. And then I'm in Berlin next week for a Google conference. And then from Berlin, I might fly down to Georgia, Tbilisi, and go and live in Tbilisi for 3 or 4 weeks while all the paperwork sorts itself out. This is something I've been working on this morning, so this is all very much up in the air, and it's a pain. I'm in mourning for Fable, yep. Chinese AI will grow quickly now. The US government are being very heavy-handed, yeah. it incentivizes people to use Chinese AIs a lot more. Whether or not they can overtake the American labs is yet to be seen. They've always been playing catch up, and part of that is because model distillation is being used. So they will get a model like Opus 4.8, and then they will distill it into DeepSeek and Kimi. So whether or not they can overtake is, we still don't know. And they are still limited by their GPUs because there are export controls on NVIDIA chips, and their ability to make domestic chips is not fully at the same scale as the American companies, or NVIDIA in particular, because they don't have access to the certain chip making technology that oh god, what are they called? LVHM? No, LVHM is, oh god, what are they called? The Dutch chip manufacturers. Totally gone from my head. There's a Dutch company, ASML, not LVHM. That is a very different company. ASML. They are a company that specialize, or one of the things they do is EUV, extreme ultraviolet lithography, which is a technology that allows the manufacturing of very, very advanced chips, because it allows you to basically make very small wiring on PCB. It's not PCBs, it's wafers, but the Chinese do not, as of yet, have access to that technology. They are trying to reverse engineer it, and I think they will manage to. It's a matter of when rather than if. But that does mean the Chinese labs are at a disadvantage because they don't have the GPU capacity. What they do have is electricity. So one of the next bottlenecks in artificial intelligence is electricity, power, and running out of power because your country does not have enough infrastructure to provide the power required by the data centers. China does not have that problem. China has an immense amount of electricity. Let me pull up the one of my favorite charts. Here it is. The top power producing countries on Earth. Oh, that's very low resolution. That's not great. But that red line there is China. So this is from, I think, 1980. Yeah, about 1990 or 1980. Most countries have just been slowly drifting up, building the odd power station, maybe investing in nuclear, whereas China, since the early 2000s, just went for it. So it's declared a strategic importance, and just they have the electricity generation equivalent to pretty much the rest, the other countries, excluding the USA. So when electricity becomes a bottleneck for training models, China's in a very, 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 very good position for that. Yeah, Mortal John saying they already have a prototype of it already in China. Yeah, that's what I read too. So the Chinese have apparently put together an EUV machine. Here we go. Yeah, this is from earlier this year. I don't know that it was still going to take a while to get it up and running. Here we go. The development of this technology is a major national priority, often referred to internally as the Manhattan Project of the Chinese chip industry. It's that important, being able to crack this technology. So yeah, they got their hands on a couple of ASML machines and have been working out how to reverse engineering it, which is an insanely complicated task. Here we go. The EUV machine consists of over 100,000 highly specialized components. ASML took over 2 decades to perfect the ecosystem, and replicating it entirely remains a massive roadblock from China. And then analysts estimate China may realistically, this is according to Reuters, produce working chips using homegrown EUV technology between 2028 and 2030, so a couple of years from now. Obviously, you then need to scale it up to production level, which is hard. But it's a matter of when rather than if. It's getting worked out. What are the best options for European AI? I mean, I guess it's Le Chat. Is Mistral? They've changed the name. I did not know that. They've renamed it to Vibe. Don't call it that. That's a very confusing name. I haven't used Mistral for a while, so I'll play around with it again. But Le Chat or Vibe from Mistral would be the only one. Okay, so Vibe is an AI agent for long horizon work. Okay, so I think they still have Shep as well. It's good. Last time I tried it, it's not as good as any of the closed source models. It's not there. If we pull this up, this is the intelligence analysis. Again, these are benchmarks. We can't necessarily list, fully trust them, but they're better than nothing. So we have, oh, that's interesting. The first time I've seen this, they've got a not currently available filter that they've added. First time I've ever seen that on artificial analysis. That's hilarious. Mistral, there they are, all the way down here. So this is Mistral Medium 3.5. They have a big one that they're about to release, apparently, which will be better. But as you see, it's, I mean, this 3.5 is behind ChatGPT 5.4. It's behind DeepSeek. It's behind Claude Sonnet 4.6, which is quite old at this point. It's behind Gemini 3.5 Flash. That's really surprising. So it's not really there yet. I'd love to see a European model get up there. And there's this talk of Mistral's new model. I think it's called, I was reading about it this morning. I don't know if this is true, that I haven't looked into this. But beyond Mistral, I know there's a Swiss one, like an EU one, which is like built for the EU. I've totally forgotten the name of it. But it's hard to get access to, and from all accounts I've heard, terrible. So, sorry. Countries need their own sovereign AI. Yeah, that's what the EU are trying to do with this EU model. I've forgotten the name of it. But you also need a lot of money to train these things. They now cost millions to train, hundreds of millions. And if you aren't willing to put in the investment to train these models, you're always going to be lagging. There is just a certain amount of GPU power you need to throw at them. There's a certain amount of electricity. There's a certain amount of engineering prowess you need to throw at these things. And if all the engineers are being poached away to America, as they have been up until now, and if the governments are willing to, the EU governments are willing to put in, not in the EU, but in the UK, they were doing projects. It's like we're giving now £100 million for these 20 projects. It's like, well, that's nothing. The scale of investment required for these projects is now in the hundreds of millions into the billions and pushing into the trillions now, with the companies pushing for IPOs right now. So as long as the EU or any other nation is not China and America, as long as they're not willing to step up and basically pay the entry fee, it's not going to happen. Like, these are table stakes now. You need to be putting billions of dollars into these projects as table stakes, and then you might have something that's maybe as good as ChatGPT. It needs to be better if you want to pull people away from it. So I don't see how they're going to catch up. So now, how can I use Fable? You cannot. We have to wait. So people are talking about Fusion API as an alternative. It's not Fable. Here we go. It's a compound model. This has kicked off and become popular because people want access to Fable, obviously. But Fusion API basically stitches together Opus 4.8, which is the currently most intelligent model from Anthropic, and Codex 5.5, I believe, and it stitches them together in such a way that supposedly it creates a smarter model than base Fable. So here we go. So this is Claude Fable 5 running by itself, but if you fuse using this Fusion API, Opus 4.8 and GPT 5.5, if you fuse them together, you get something that is more intelligent than Fable 5 running solo. Or if you're real fancy, you can actually fuse Fable 5 with GPT 5. Obviously you can't now because it's been taken off the table. But by fusing different models together, using them against each other, and to back each other's work up, you can create something that is supposedly smarter than Fable. And I've seen a lot of people talking about Fable, a lot of very smart people who kind of roll their own AI, or they do very clever agentic workflows. They've had this kind of intelligence for a while because they have built systems that and harnesses that have been able to do the complexity of tasks Fable have. So this is basically the same thing, but it's Fusion API from OpenRouter. So this is currently the easiest way to get an equivalent level of intelligence. It's going to be expensive because you're going to be using you're going to have both APIs, but that will get you somewhere close, apparently. I haven't used it yet, though. Croatia. Yeah, I could come to Croatia. I was mentioning earlier that I'm having not residency problems, but I'm running out of time to submit my residency application, and I keep finding out there's new forms I need to get. And the latest one is I need to get social insurance. My business needs a social insurance number, and I just found out, oh, that would take several weeks, and I don't have several weeks before my ability to stay in Cyprus runs out. So I'm going to go away, stop the clock while all the paperwork is being filed, and I'm probably going to go to Tbilisi. But Biljka's saying come to Croatia. I'd love to. What does the AI governance info look like beyond policy and checklist? Don't know. Sorry, it's not my area of expertise at all. There are much smarter people about that kind of thing. That's what's happening with DeepMind. That was a British thing, but UK wouldn't back it. Google did. Yeah, I mean, Demis Hassabis knew that he needed resources, and that's why he sold to Google, because he basically gave him a blank check to do what he needed to do. And they could have bootstrapped in the UK, but he had bigger aspirations. They needed to move faster. So they teamed up with Google, and from what I've heard, Google basically allow them to get on with things, get on it with what they need to do. And they're still based in the UK as well. I was at the Google office at King's Cross, and I saw the DeepMind offices, and they're all kind of not blacked out, but they have curtains, and you can't go on that floor. Like every other floor has cafes and stuff, and you can wander around, and it's whatever. Once you're in the building, obviously, but the DeepMind floor is like, you don't go there. You don't ask what they're doing. You don't peer through the windows. So if anyone's been to Google in King's Cross, you know there's a central kind of light well, and you can see all the offices around it. All of their windows are covered, so people can't see the whiteboards, they can't see the work, can't see the screens inside, which is hilarious. They're still there. What would you suggest for use on meaty tasks such as business planning now that Fable is out? I mean, Opus 4.8, still good. And I'm personally using Codex. I'm using Codex more than I use Claude now. I used to be all in on Claude for the last couple of years. Codex is really, 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 really good. So Codex, you can give it a goal. So using goals since May. So it's been about a month. It's a persistent objective that keep a thread working towards a defined outcome across turns. So it's just going to keep going, basically. So I have one. Let me see if I can put it up. I have one which I was running. It's been running for. Here we go. Just trying to see it. It's been running for 1 day, 23 hours, 23 minutes, and 40 seconds. Like, you can give big chunky tasks to Codex and it will work its way through them over time. And that was a big task, and that's including it checking its own work, including it kind of building, doing build checks, correcting itself. So that's why it's taking a very, very long time to get it done, and it's a big task as well. So that's what I'd recommend. So Codex 5.5, which you can get on the $20 a month Codex subscription. You can get it on the free subscription, actually, which is very unlike Claude Code. Set up a goal and then leave it to go off and do its own thing, and it will probably astound you. I think Codex is very, very good. That's why for me, Fable, it's annoying it's gone, but I'm currently primarily using the ChatGPT, the Codex ecosystem. So I am more excited about GPT 5.6, GPT 6, which we probably will have this year, because I think they can do something similar to Fable, because Codex is already really, 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 really good. If you do, I can share tips on what to do, where to go. Thank you, Bejka. What do you know about the RTX hardware that NVIDIA are coming out with in the use of that with local AI? Not enough to talk about it, I'm afraid. I saw the announcement. How much is it? It looked great. Is it this one? No, this is just an RTX. I saw they had some very interesting new announcements, but I don't know the name of them specifically. Oh, this is all just video game stuff. Because they had the mini chip, didn't they, which they're going to be putting into... Ah, there we go, Spark. Oh, it's this. Yeah, so RTX Spark. Really cool because it allows us to do this kind of thing on a laptop. Obviously, if you're doing really heavy stuff, you're still going to be using a server. You're still going to be using a rack. But the fact that it is becoming feasible to do this kind of work, to training models and running models, is pretty cool, really cool. But I don't know enough about it to comment. Don't want to be impertinent, but if you want to answer, are you buying Anthropic IPO / investing? This is not investment advice. I've been offered it. I'm going to see what happens this week, personally. Right now, it's too up in the air. I'm actually more interested in the OpenAI one, personally. How much have you made for AI? Do you mean making models or making software? Most of the software I make is for consumer usage. So I am hopping on the back of people who are much smarter than me who can build these models. I'm certainly not training my own models. I did it once to learn how to do it, but I'm not going to spend a couple of $1 million training a model when I can just pop into an API or download an open source model. But I did it for the learning. It was good fun. But yeah, I'm not going to spend $100 million on it. Awesome. I'm going to finish up the live. We'll see what happens with Fable. I mean, this is a moving target. I'm sure everything we've discussed today will be out of date probably tomorrow. That's fine. It's just the way it is. Awesome. Thank you guys, and have a lovely day.